Given sine theta equals 7 over 11 and secant theta is less than 0, find cosine and tangent. Okay, well, remember that sine theta, I'll put it down here, sine theta is equal to y over r. So when they give us 7 over 11, that means that y is 7 and r is 11. Okay? Now, secant is less than 0. Remember that secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So secant will be positive or negative in the same places where cosine is positive and negative. So in what quadrants will cosine be negative? Because that's really what this is saying. All right, if we're saying that secant is less than 0, that means that secant is negative. So cosine is negative. So remembering that cosine is an x value on the unit circle, then that helps us remember that cosine is going to be negative in these two quadrants. Okay, the second quadrant and the third quadrant. So based on the second statement, we know that we're in one of these two quadrants, all right, because this is where secant and cosine are less than 0. But based on the first statement, sine is positive. So that narrows it down further. In which quadrant is sine positive? The second quadrant, all right, sine is a y value, so it's going to be positive above the x-axis. So if sine is positive and cosine is negative, that means we're in the second quadrant. So now we can draw a picture with a degree of intelligence. So here is our little triangle, and we know that the y is 7, so that's going to be just like this, and we know that r is 11. In order to find cosine and tangent, we're going to need to know the x value. Okay, so we can just do the Pythagorean theorem. So x squared plus 7 squared is equal to 11 squared. So x squared plus 49 is equal to 121. Okay, so subtracting 49 from both sides, we've got x squared equals, so that's 72. And then if I take the square root of both sides, I find that x is equal to the square root of 72. Look, 72 is the same thing as 36 times 2. So that means that this will simplify down to 6 radical 2. Okay, so now it's time to find cosine and tangent. All right, let me scoot over to the side a little bit more and maybe change colors. Okay, cosine of theta is x over r. All right, what's a good color to use on this? I don't use orange very much. Okay, cosine theta is x over r. So x is 6 radical 2. All right, so cosine theta is going to be 6 radical 2 over, and then r was 11. So 6 radical 2 over 11. Okay. Oh, you know what? When I took the square root just then, I should have said plus or minus 72. All right, that's what you have to do anytime you take the square root of both sides. So this was really plus or minus 6 radical 2. But in this case, we know that x is negative because of the quadrant. So we can just plain go ahead and say negative 6 radical 2. All right, because of being in the second quadrant. So this is negative 6 radical 2 over 11. So that's cosine. What about tangent? Well, tangent is y over x. All right, so that means that tangent is going to be 7. We knew that y is 7 over x, which we just discussed is negative 6 radical 2. Okay? Now, often they do something called rationalizing the denominator, and so I feel like I better do that. Because probably, so just at a glance, I'm looking at all these tangents, and I don't see this answer. And that's because usually if you come up with a radical in the denominator, they rationalize it, they get rid of the radical in the denominator by multiplying the numerator and denominator by that same radical. So what we end up with when we do this, I'll just put the negative sign in the middle. So in the numerator we have 7 radical 2. In the denominator we have 6 times 2, because radical 2 times radical 2 is a regular 2. So in the end we have negative 7 radical 2 over 12. Okay, so this is tangent and this is cosine. So look, I feel like I'm seeing it right here. Choice D. Negative 6 radical 2 over 11 and negative 7 radical 2 over 12. So the answer is D.